Hello everyone and welcome to the e-commerce series all about webinars where we're going to tell you from the e-commerce edge report how to implement the tip in your business. I'm Lucia from Dello Insights. Over winter I interviewed 21 e-commerce experts and asked them all about what data insights they got from last year and how they're going to use them this year to grow their business and develop things. So it's amazing that I've managed to get this report out. The report's on my website on the link, and then following on from that I've done these webinars. I've got 20 of my experts, so 10 different webinars looking at different themes, telling us how to use the information in action. Today we're focusing on strategic decision making. In fact, research shows only 13% of organisations execute their data strategy. When I started feeding that statistic to people, they said actually if you consider all the people that don't even have a data strategy in the first place, it's a surprising amount of people. So we're very lucky to be joined by Sarah Johnson from Flourish Retail and Andrew Kemp from Bearkind, and they're going to help us actually get your data strategy back on track or think about how to build one if you haven't got one already. So what we're going to do over the next 25 minutes is I'm going to get Sarah and Andrew to introduce themselves, give you their tip, and then they'll take it in turns, really telling us how to take this tip, implement it into business, all the information we need to know to get started, who the tip's going to work for, what kind of benefits you're going to get, a step-by-step guide. There's a chat box that's open, so put your details in here if you join the call. Let us know, what kind of who you are, where you're from, and then ask any questions and we'll deal with those as well. And once it's finished, all these webinar recordings are going to be on our website on the media page. So without any further ado, let's get started. So who wants to go first? Sarah, I think, volunteered, didn't she?
I did. Well, willingly, maybe not.
Okay.
So
this is just the intro and your tip, and we'll switch to Andrew and then back for you for the full thing.
No problem. So I'm Sarah Johnson. I'm the founder of Flourish Retail, which is a merchandising consultancy. So we help product-based businesses to boost their sales, cut their costs and drive their profitability using their data. So my top tip within the report was basically that it's crucial to look at your business as a whole rather than an isolated part. So that is based on having a strong product hierarchy so that you can highlight trends and that enables smarter data-driven decisions then for your business.
Fabulous. Thank you, Sarah.
Amazing.
Andy?
Hey guys, I'm Andy. I run Bearkind and Candid Founders. Bearkind, we sell animal saving socks, so these beautiful bad boys here. We love doing that, and we also started a little YouTube channel called Candid Founders where we kind of help people do their businesses through FAIR, which was my top tip. So I feel like there's a massive focus on e-commerce, getting your taxonomy right there, making sure all of your data's really looking good on the e-commerce side. But the B2B e-commerce play has been absolutely massive for us in our business. So we went from 0 retailers to 1,000 retailers. And so just trying to convince everybody that, you really should be focusing with these great e-commerce products. People kind of ignore the high street, but there's still thousands and thousands of retailers out there that will happily sell your products. And if you've got a really good product, like I think we do, obviously with Bearkind, then why not get it out onto other people's shelves? And that's the big one for us. So yeah, if there are any product businesses here, just like get on FAIR. That's the main thing. FAIRE. Yeah.
Fabulous, Andrew. You want to put that in the chat, how to spell it, then we'll all know where it is.
Oh yeah, good idea.
And there's a really good connection here because I know, Sarah, you work a lot with the physical stores as well as the online, don't you? So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe that's a good segue for you to start and to really tell us the problems you've experienced where people haven't got this right, and why this tip's so important and how they can make the changes.
So often when going to a lot of product-based businesses, they've obviously grown to a certain size, they've done it a lot of it off gut feel, and they haven't necessarily started looking at their data. So that's normally the starting point for it, is that just start looking at data generally because you've typically got a lot of it in your business. But then what we often find is people look at individual lines at product level and they'll say, right, okay, how's this one doing? How's that one doing? And it becomes a bit of a scattergun approach, and also it's really time consuming. So what we found is by consolidating, like big businesses would, consolidating under product hierarchies and product types, then you can start to spot trends much quicker. So you can say, oh, actually, if I'm looking at clothing, for example, my dresses are working really well this week, and then you can drill down to it and say, well, what is it that's driving it? Oh, it's this one. Right, how can I then go and optimize it? And then you can look at something else and say, well, actually, my trousers aren't working. what is it that's pulling the performance of that one down? Oh, it's this one, it's not working because the price is wrong, or the shoot looks wrong on the website, or that we've had an issue with the fit. So all of those things, you can then pinpoint all of your products much quicker if you're looking at it from a holistic point of view and then drilling down.
Thank you, that's great. So I suppose my assumption would be that people do this anyway. You know, isn't a product always nicely loaded, you know, and done sequentially with thought to the overall process? But I guess you're going to tell me what happens in reality, so why isn't the case?
I think because a lot of businesses, when they start, obviously they're just gaining momentum and trying to keep going, and also I think a lot of businesses have started with very creative founders who do amazing things with their products, and they're not necessarily numbers driven, which is probably a good thing, because actually it would probably stifle the creativity in a lot of cases. So I think it becomes a bit of a runaway train, and they get to a certain point and you're like, oh, now I've got to do all of the things and I should be looking at this, that and the other, and they don't really know how to start. So that's where we often come into businesses and go, right, we're not going to take it over and suddenly make it into a really corporate high street brand or anything. We just need to add a little bit of structure around it. I talk about it as being a bit like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, just trying to make sure it's not going to fall over so that it can keep going upwards. And it means that then you can look at the right areas rather than, like I was saying, look at those sort of scattergun approach.
So are there certain symptoms that would happen where you know they need to go in and fix it? You know, what kind of things would you commonly see?
Yeah, so I guess they're often not focusing on the right areas, or they're trying to keep growing their range, and therefore they've just got more and more products adding to the range, but they don't know what's working, what the focus should be. So that's when we have to then kind of go in and say, right, okay, actually these ones that are on the periphery aren't really adding much to the party, let's get rid of those and let's really focus on what is driving the business. It's that whole 80-20 rule again of, like, you know, 80% of your business is probably coming from 20% of your products, and while you shouldn't suddenly just shrink it right down, you still need to have, you know, a nice balanced range for your customer. There needs to be a focus on, right, what is really driving it, what's the volume, how can we make sure that we really potentialise that and ultimately potentialise the profit as well in the business.
Fabulous. How would they start making these changes? You know, they've identified there's a problem based on what you said, and they need to make these changes. Where would you advise them to start, and what steps would they follow?
So I think on that, it's to start grouping those products. So making sure that it doesn't necessarily have to follow what's on your website. So you might have your website set up because your customer shops in a certain way. That's absolutely fine. It doesn't have to align with how you're reporting and interrogating your data and then taking that into planning. So look at it how it feels logical to you. It might be that you do it by product category. So for example, clothing's an easy one where it's like, you know, dresses, trousers, tops, great. You can sort of put those under the right categories. But they need to be meaningful categories. So often a lot of people will go, oh, but I've got this product over here and I don't really know quite where it fits, and it sort of becomes, again, it becomes too thinly spread. So it's about trying to get chunks of products into the right categories, and if you need it, subcategories sometimes as well. So that you can then say, right, these are my groups of products, this is what I'm looking at from my whole range.
Fabulous, that's really important.
Lucia, can I ask some questions?
Of course you can.
Obviously, guys, so I've got a brand as well, as well as a top tip. I've got both, it's amazing. With our socks, Sarah, so we've got about 100 designs. Definitely have that kind of like 80-20 rule, like you kind of describe. And we've only recently started, we kind of segmented everything into A, B, C sellers, did that maybe last year, groundbreaking for us. But then now this year, we've actually moved to like kind of months coverage as our way of like determining, okay, how much stock am I going to hold between my A's and like what stock goes into A, B and C's. My problem is that I've got probably like 50% of products that are just duds. And so we've now kind of identified that. My current thoughts are we're going to do a sale on those kind of like bottom 50%. I'm going to keep, for the real duds, we're just going to liquidate them. This will be the first time we've done a liquidation. So liquidate a whole bunch of them in June, and then a whole bunch after Christmas. We're a big, very Christmas heavy business. Then another whole bunch after Christmas. And I think it's basically telling me to just go like much more into newness. But I just feel really weird getting rid of that bottom 50%. Maybe I could have identified it earlier if I'd done the subcategory work, but I mean, I didn't. What do you kind of recommend in that instance? Like, I don't want to lose 50% of my product line, but equally, it's just killing me on my storage costs, for example.
Yeah. That's the problem, because then that is just tying up the cash flow, so you need to be able to release it off. So you can, I think it's not a problem to focus in on the volume lines that you've got, because we've obviously got key lines in the business that are working really well. I think look at it in terms of a staggered approach. So you'll have some of those lines are going to be far, like you were saying, I'm going to liquidate some of it. Some of those are going to be far worse than others. So instead of doing like a blanket, here's 50% off all of them, look at it as a staggered discount, so that you then start to clear it almost in a like continual line almost. So what we want to do is, if we suddenly put a blanket discount on everything, nothing changes in terms of that sales shape. So they'll still buy into it at the same rate, because there's no real incentive to buy into the stock that's not really working. So look at that and understand, right, these are not as bad as these ones, so these ones will be 50% off, these ones I only need to do 30% off. And that way you'll start to target the customer to the right products. And then you can think about it as well in another way of like, can you do bundling, things like that. So actually, can I start to give an offer on these particular socks? So actually, if you buy this sock, you get this one for half price. Or if you're actually just going to job some of it off, then it's like, well, actually, do we start giving it away as a gift with purchase to try and drive up then the sales number from your other bestsellers as a bit of an incentive to buy into those, basket thresholds, that sort of thing. So you can look at it that way as well.
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, the staggered discount part I hadn't considered, because we were going to just kind of do like a 40% or 50% off, just kind of like for quite a large swath, maybe not the full kind of bottom 50, but maybe the bottom 25 or something like that. That's helpful, thank you.
Yeah, so look at your cover on those, and that will give you the indicator of sort of where you need to tier those discounts, because then you can say, right, okay, these are the worst ones, they need the deeper discount, these ones aren't so bad. Because otherwise it's like when everyone puts a blanket discount on, everyone still buys into the best sellers, you're just hemorrhaging some profit on that. So you'll save profit as well on those other ones that aren't quite as bad. So it'll make it much more palatable to get rid of it. But yeah, never be afraid to do range consolidation, because actually it's an important thing to do, and it's clearer for the customer then as well, because you're focusing them, there's less overwhelm. So having worked at ASOS, and we've all been on the ASOS pages at points where we've gone, oh god, I don't know what I'm going to buy, I think that's quite an important one to remember as well sometimes.
Lovely. We've had a question come in, Sarah, and we've just been asked about, will it drive site traffic? How will it affect site traffic? Is there a link between product categories being better and more site traffic? Or is it really going to be something that's more a back-end operation that will help the back-end side of it?
It's more the back end that we're focusing on, but also then they still need to focus on the product categories and how the customer's shopping. So this is the thing, is, you know, it might be that they're completely aligned, and actually what you've got replicated on the website is exactly how you're planning and reporting and trading. Yep. But if a customer's shopping in a certain way, there shouldn't be a reason why you wouldn't go down that route in terms of reflecting that. So are they shopping it by dress style or by shape, or are they doing it by occasion, for example, whereas you wouldn't plan at that level and you wouldn't necessarily always report at that level. You can have product categories and then look at attributes, for example. So if you've got occasion on the website, you might have all of those attributes within your data that you can then do a report on it and say, right, actually, how is wedding performing? How's bridesmaids? How's birthday parties? Or all of that sort of thing as well. So you can cut it in different ways, but having your main core product categories as the starting point is really important, so that you can then start to get that holistic view and then do that funneling down.
I suppose they'll never be found if they're not in the right categories or they're not attributes. Those products will never be found, will they? So, you know, they're never going to appear on those Google ads, aren't they, for example?
Yeah.
So.
I think it's really important as well in terms of the website and the customer facing piece, it is understanding how they're shopping it. Mm-hmm. So looking at search terms that are going in on the website, you know, what are people searching for, can give you a real insight then into, well, how should I structure my website in terms of directing the customer to that point, because if it's too difficult for them to find certain things. So that's where looking at trends and constantly reviewing that and understanding, okay, what's trending at the moment, do we need to call that out on the nav bar, for example, can be really important.
So within the organisation, so you said you talked about people that had grown to a certain size, their range has really expanded. Who would have the responsibility for doing that? Would it be the marketing people, the senior management, for kind of looking at these reports and getting it all together?
It's whoever is doing that data interrogation piece. So they should ultimately hold the responsibility for it. So whoever's doing the planning and understanding how much stock they need to buy should really be driving out what those product hierarchies look like, because they're the ones that need to use it in that way to understand what it is that they need to go and buy for the customer.
Then it's really, is it an ongoing process once they've actually set up their categories correctly, just an ongoing process, checking they're always doing it when it's something new and monitoring it, just checking they don't fall behind again?
Yeah, so it becomes that whole best practice piece that we try and put in place for people, that they then make sure that every time they're setting up a product, it's getting all of those categories assigned. If you're putting attributes in there, making sure that's in there as well, so that then it's that usual thing of, if you're not putting the right information in, you're not going to get the right information out in the polite form. So it's, making sure that it is consistent across the business. And there's no reason why you can't re-look at it, but ideally what you don't want to be doing is moving them about every 5 minutes. You want to try and get it into a format that is going to make sense for quite a long period of time, so that you've got historical data to then look back on and make decisions from.
If it's in a really, really bad state, what would you do? Would you just start from going forward, or would you actually go back and try and correct everything? Because obviously all your historic reporting will then be affected if you're recategorising things. And
I think it's important though if it's in a real mess, you're better off just reclassifying it. What we do with a lot of our clients when we come in and we set them up with reporting is we do that piece of work to say, right, what does the product hierarchy look like? And then we'll do some data cleansing and say, right, okay, this is what that should be sitting under. And then we'll retrospectively look at the history if we need to. But moving forward, it's important that we've got it in the right places.
That's amazing, thank you. We've just been asked
a question. Can I add an additional point? I think it's about I think once you get an understanding of what products you have, and then making that available to the customer through the website to answer that question originally, what we found is about that question around demand generation versus demand capture. And what we found we've got near 100 designs now, and we've got a lot of products focused on different animals. We weren't capturing that demand on animal particular socks because we didn't have that information in the mega menu, and just making that available to people. Our collection all page is still our best page, but there's people coming from Google where we've that demand has been captured, and they've searched for maybe not a red squirrel sock, but our squirrel socks. They've gone directly to that place. So it actually can drive additional demand and capture that demand that is out there. So I do think there is a marketing side as well as the data cleansing and all that sort of side.
Yeah.
In addition.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, Sarah. We've been asked a question on drop shipping. Are either of you drop shipping experts, or should we just park that question for now and move on to Andy?
We started there.
Right, okay. Let's go on to Andy then.
Yeah, we started there we had 4 products. We had metal straws, plastic t-shirts, recyclable totes, and bamboo socks. And it's actually probably a pretty good question, Abhishek, on those 4. We basically drop shipped because we didn't have that much stock to begin with. Actually, we full on drop shipped the metal straws. The recyclable totes, we did our run of our own. The plastic t-shirts, we drop shipped, and then the bamboo socks, we did a run of our own. And all of them failed except for the bamboo socks. And that was just because we had something unique, we feel. We had something unique that other people didn't. With the drop shipping of the straws, everyone could find it. It was a race to the bottom. It didn't really feel like it was adding kind of any differentiated product. Maybe if you find it to begin with, you're the first person to drop ship, I don't know, socks. Let's heaven forbid. That wouldn't be my business, but if maybe for the first person, but that's my personal view. And I also don't think you have to buy a whole bunch of stock. It might feel like a lot to begin with, where you're like, actually, I'm going to go out on a limb here and buy 1,000 pairs of socks. Worst comes to worst, you have that exact same pair of socks for the rest of your life. Not terrible. You've got gifts that you can give away for everyone. But once you start to do sizable volume, it's not the end of the world. It feels scary to begin with, but just try. That's what I'd say.
Brilliant. No, that's really helpful. Thank you. Right, Andy, come and tell us all about FAIR, because I know you've had a huge journey, haven't you, where you started 2 years later with FAIR, and then you've even set up your own channel, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a funny one.
Guru.
I don't know if I'd go that far. Thankfully, my wife is much more attractive than me, and so she does a lot of the YouTube videos. So Candid Founders on YouTube. Basically, if you look at anything on Fair, what's that? Like, subscribe, follow for more, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, check us out. But basically, we started Candid Founders and Bearkind because we wanted to donate profits from our socks to the animal in the socks. And we thought, do we want to start a charity or do we want to start a business? And we thought, there's heaps of charities out there. Why not a business that's helping other charities? And so we now support over 40 different charities around the world. And we started Candid Founders off the back of that to just kind of share all of the benefits that we've received by doing donations as a part of our product model. So we started this Candid Founders thing. Then we also started this thing called Fair. And we went from 0 retailers to 1,000 retailers. And so we started telling everyone about it through Candid Founders. And for our business, if I'm honest, where we were 5 years ago when we first started, we probably didn't have a product that was, from a quality perspective, that should have been in 1,000 plus retailers. But we just had this massive distribution advantage. And I see so many product businesses that are selling through TikTok, YouTube, Meta, all of those different platforms, but they're not selling to retailers. And I mean, I don't know what the exact number is, but I don't think e-commerce has gone past 50% of sales on the high street. So if you're ignoring the high street, you're still, I know obviously e-commerce is growing the fastest, but it's still less than half of where actually, commerce goes. And so Fair gets you out to these retailers really quickly. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do, but, I think probably the most important stuff is, to Sarah's point, is make sure that people can find your products. So make sure your SEO is pretty good. Make sure you're labeling everything correctly. And then it's super simple these days to connect up through Shopify and other platforms to get into Fair. And then Abhishek, to your question, you can't sell dropshipping products through Fair. It's just not going to be priced well enough for you. So, now we do over 50% of our revenue through a B2B channel. So you definitely want to try and get through into Fair for sure.
So it's really for people who manufacture their own products, so they're the people who really will work well on Fair.
Yeah, you definitely need that cost advantage. If you just think about it from like a pricing perspective, Sarah will know this much better than I, but you've got your RRP, say 10 quid, and then you're selling to a retailer at say 4 quid. Well, you need to be receiving that good at quite cheap price, probably under £1. And if you're drop shipping it to a retailer, you're probably drop shipping it at £4, so you're probably not making any money there. Might be a good way to test demand, but probably deep dive and make a decision on a product that you think could sell and go for it. That's what I would say.
So you'd really just start with 1 or 2 products, would you, when you started on Fair, rather than putting the whole range on?
Oh, definitely not. Would go 100% every product. Sorry, Lydia.
No.
Everything
it
that
sounds
you've
like
got.
a lot of work, doesn't it? To put them all on and then see if it works or not.
Well, that's a good point. But if you're on Shopify, it's just a click of a button. Put everything on.
Right.
You'd want to give your retailers the full range. Obviously, there's got to be nuances. Sometimes you might not do that. So probably shouldn't have been so forthright there. But you definitely want to get pretty much everything on there. Retailers, the way that we think about it, are investing in your product. They're not buying your product, they're investing. And why are they investing? Because they want to make money off the end of it. So they need to feel like you've got credibility. They need to feel like they're going to make a lot of cash back. And so how do you kind of maximize that? And every business is different. If I take, for example, my red squirrels, they're not going to sell as well in Brighton compared to my seahorses. And so how am I supposed to know that, again, to Sarah's point around, maybe you've got your Sea Life socks and you've got your kind of park socks here, but they're selling to different places. So you need to get, don't assume that you know the answer. Your retailer probably has got a pretty good idea.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're looking at the same sort of thing. So they're looking at their own product hierarchy and understanding what they want in their range to then be able to buy it from Andy.
Lovely. Thank you. So does it
Sarah,
take
I'll definitely hire you there. 100%. Your affiliate contract is coming in the mail.
So you made it sound really easy, just connect to Shopify, but is there more to it when you're actually setting up a Fair process? How does the legal side work, the payments, restrictions, what kind of things do you need to know to get started?
It is really simple. Get everything out from Shopify onto the platform. You've obviously got to apply and be approved. So you don't want to have kind of just a rubbish product that doesn't look too great. You need decent photography. Someone is going to be looking at your profile from Fair. So, rubbish in, rubbish out, kind of to Sarah's point earlier. You want to avoid that. And then it's just about acquiring customers. Fair has a couple of goals. They want to make money, surprise, surprise, and they want to get more retailers. So if you can bring more retailers to Fair and then have them transact on the platform, if you bring the customer to Fair, it's 0% commission. But then Fair will then cross-sell them to other people, so they're going to make money off the back of that. And then when customers keep coming back, we get about 80% of our sales come from someone that Fair has found for us. We pay 15% on that. Fine. I wasn't going to get the sale otherwise. Amazing. Happy to pay the commission. So it's all about maximizing their commission, which will maximize your sales. So make sure everything's written down and looks great on your product titles, product descriptions. Fill out all the kind of subcategories, the meta fields that Fair can then merchandise your product effectively, just like you would do on Shopify. Make sure you're doing that on Fair, and then make sure you're introducing customers through cold email, etc. The only thing I don't recommend, and this is kind of to Abhishek's question, is how important are ads, for example, on Fair. They're not really that important from a perspective of driving Facebook and Google ads to your Fair platform. Our preference is to drive those people on a B2B perspective, like on a B2C perspective, to your online store. That'd be the only thing I'd say.
So you're actively going out to these stores and trying to get them to buy from your Fair when you talk about the customers. So you're proactively marketing that way.
We do. We give the options to the customer.
Okay.
Fair offers 60-day terms. It's a super simple process. There's no requirements on our side from operations. Order comes straight from Fair into Shopify into our 3PL, and then goes out. Super simple. I've never had a customer not pay through Fair. That's crazy. I mean, 1,000+ retailers, and small retailers aren't always doing the best. And then of the people that I've done, like 5 or 10% of my clients that I've worked with directly have gone under. So we don't offer credit terms to those people. So if you get credit terms, go through Fair. If you don't want credit terms, go directly through us. We let customers do that. Some people want to go direct.
Lovely. And I know you looked at a number of platforms, didn't you, before really going with Fair? So what kind of things should people look out when they go on a platform? Is it about the platform support that they should look for, the costs, or...?
The platform wars, as they were kind of called, I don't actually know if they were called that, but that's what I've called them, between Fair, Anchor Store, Creoweight, depending on the regions, are really kind of finished now, and Fair came out on top. And that would be for like kind of general B2B e-commerce and the marketplaces. But there are specific niches that work better in different areas. So for example, in the US, for food and beverage, there's Mabel. They're still doing really well. So there are some niches where, for example, distributors are a really big piece because you're shipping a lot of volume and weight, like what cafes have, because they're always getting milk. Just those kind of niches are being won still by some other players. But for example, with Fair, you basically just want to go, to answer your question, let's say, where are all the retailers? And all of the retailers are on Fair. Anchor Store, Creoweight, it's a little bit, but there's not heaps. They just didn't win the platform war.
Amazing, thank you. Is there anything else you should know about Fair before we finish the call?
I always think on this one as well, it's like the cost that the commission that you're spending, I always think of it as like a marketing spend, because you are getting your product in front of a lot more eyeballs. So it always feels a bit more palatable then, although you obviously want those D2C because you get better margin. Actually, this is a really good way of growing your brand and growing your reach to make sure that your product's in front of far more people. So it's a good way to do it. But like Andy was saying, it's making sure you've got your pricing right, to make sure you've still got enough profit and margin in there to make sure that it is going to be workable for your brand. If you've got 50-60% initial margin, it's just not going to work. So you do need to make sure that you've priced your product correctly to make sure that you can make it work for you.
100% agree on that, Sarah. Like, gross margin is so critical, and so many businesses think that they're making enough just by doubling, but really you have to be so laser tight on gross margin, and wholesale will force you to do that because you won't have those overinflated sales prices like you've got with direct to consumer, and then you are paying through the absolute nose through with marketing. So yeah, 100% agree with you. And then let's see, to your question, anything else? Candid Founders on YouTube, please, guys. We're a very small channel, very cute channel. So please like, subscribe, follow for more.
Amazing. Thank you very much, both of you. Okay, I think we're done. It's 1:00, so let's finish here. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bye.